All right. Hello. I want to give you my closing thoughts of 2021 and discuss with you what I would hope to see in 2022. And I'm just moving my camera for a bit. That you all can see me. So, here we are again. Another rough year. Hopefully behind us. I mean, there were some better things that I enjoyed this year, a lot better than last year in regard, and just 2020 taking away how I was stuck in this house for a majority of the year. And I'm just never going to forget how rough 2020 was. I mean, it was rough for all of us. We all had to make sacrifices that we all didn't want to have to do, but obviously things were different back then, and now we're approaching, hopefully, a better 2022, I hope, for a lot of us. Obviously, I'll recap my year and go into what I think were the best parts of it. Obviously, being able to travel again without no restrictions, honestly, I felt was the best thing this year, considering that we weren't allowed to do that last year. Obviously, things opened up more this year. Obviously, we know that everything turned out a little bit better for yours truly. I was able to go to the city, go into Manhattan, and just, go to Long Island. And I was very happy about that. And I was glad I got to see a brand new train station, Moynihan, and was able to get back to some of the parks this year. I know I couldn't get to Carl Schultz because my schedule was just hectic. I mean, between going back to work this year and, everything else that I'm not going to say on camera, but I will say that this year was a whole lot better than 2020. I mean, yeah, I still wish I could go back to pre-pandemic. I mean, we all wish we could do that, but hopefully that will be in a year from now. I would hope. And I'm going to focus on a couple things that need to be prioritized in 2022. Obviously, the first thing that needs to be addressed, and I know I talk about the crime a lot, but the main thing is we've got to make sure that COVID-19, this nightmare pandemic, is just behind us. We have to focus on what is to come in the new year, because hopefully with these drug treatments that were approved by Pfizer and Merck, and now that we have the in-home testing kits, I mean, we should be able to put the worst of this behind us by the end of next year. I don't see why not. I don't see how, for the United States' sake, that shouldn't be an issue. I mean, the rest of the world, it's going to take a lot longer for the pandemic to end. Don't get me wrong, third world countries that don't have the medical resources like advanced countries in Japan or the United Kingdom or the United States in that regard, or even my friends up in Canada, I will give them a shout out. But the bottom line is, we should have the worst of COVID behind us by this time next year. And if we're still in a pandemic, then I don't know what's wrong with this country. That's all I'm going to say on that regard. But who knows? There's an uncertainty that there could be a Vorp vaccine. Israel's currently testing it right now. So we'll have to wait to hear on that. But what I would say right now is, for the beginning of the new year, I would just recommend to wear your mask indoors. I'm not saying you have to. I'm not a doctor. I would recommend looking into, if you still haven't been vaccinated or got your booster, I would recommend to look into it. You ought to think about it. I'm not saying you have to. And obviously, many of you know I protested the mandates that Mayor de Blasio planned, which went through, and that's why we have the wonderful COVID Safe app. You can barely see it here, but yeah, that's why we have this wonderful COVID Safe app, as I'm going to call it. I'm being sarcastic. For these passports that de Blasio got away with. Just like how he got away with a lot of things when he was mayor that he should be going to jail for. But that's a whole nother topic for a whole nother day, which, honestly, good riddance de Blasio. And I will get to the politics in a second. We're going to get into that stuff. But the bottom line is, these mandates are something that, if it's your body and your choice, but it seems the government wants to put its 2 cents in, and, I feel the same way with how the protesters felt. I mean, some of them had radical viewpoints, but, the bottom line is, this is the United States. I mean, you shouldn't be forced to take something that, you don't want. But obviously, I took the vaccine because bottom line is, the end of the day, wanted to do it for my family mostly, because I live with my parents who are above the age of 60, and they are a very vulnerable age group, and that was basically the main reason why I got it, and also was for work. I mean, now you don't even get the vaccine with how draconian things have gotten. You're not allowed to work in the city of New York. So obviously, sitting at home just because I'm not vaccinated, that doesn't help anyone. But I do hope we will get past another winter surge. It happened last year. It certainly did, and I would be very surprised if the cases did not start to go down probably by, I would say, April. That's when we noticed it in New York last year. Because remember, a lot of people are going indoors again. And especially how, with the cold weather, being anticipated, and we all gathered around for the holidays, we should be prepared for a winter surge. Obviously, that's why Northwell told all of our non-essential employees to just stay home until the hospitalizations go down. I mean, yeah, we have far less hospitalizations than this time last year, but they don't want to chance it. Obviously, they are worried, and, I'm not corporate. I'm not the one making the decisions. I'm not David Mack in the boardroom saying, "We must do this immediately." I'm not him. I'm not any of these Norfolk corporate members, all right? But in a way, as long as I'm still working at Osnum, that's all I care about. For now. But that could change, and the vaccine makers think, oh, it's going to be, so maybe March or April we'll have an Omicron specific vaccine. So there's that. And we just have to hope that we will get, again, through another bad peak of COVID, which we should be able to. So, next up, and this is the final point I'm going to discuss, let's quickly talk about politics. I know, it's a controversial subject, but we have to quickly talk about it. So, obviously, as I said in the teaser, Bill de Blasio is leaving. Goodbye. Farewell. Go to Park Slope. Leave us alone. We've already done enough to hurt our city, de Blasio. I mean, this seriously has been the worst mayor we've ever had. Letting all the criminals out, closing Rikers Island, putting homeless shelters without community input. Let's see what else he's done. Oh, yeah. Planting trees that we don't want in our neighborhoods. Do you honestly think that I wanted another tree in front of my house with all the storms we've had? No. Why should the city tell me what I can't have on my property? Oh, and not to mention de Blasio's raised my taxes. So there's that. I mean, I have online proof. Not going to say what website has the proof, but there is proof my taxes did go up more under de Blasio, because Bloomberg did raise my taxes when I first moved here. That was the only negative, but then de Blasio came in and he made it a lot worse for this house I'm in right now. And what am I really paying for? I mean, I'm paying to see homeless in Manhattan. I'm paying for crime that's getting out of hand because of him. You know, he technically started this whole bail reform nonsense, alright? He started letting all the criminals out of Rikers, and a lot of them ended up being homeless. A lot of them ended up being drug addicts that should have stayed in jail. And, you know, the bottom line is, that's why you're seeing all these problems, because of him. Do you honestly think Giuliani or Bloomberg would have let this get out of hand? Now, remember, the homeless under Bloomberg were not technically criminals. Okay, they weren't being let out under Bloomberg's jurisdiction, alright? What happened was, remember, you gotta blame the recession. Alright, that came into a factor, and Bloomberg just honestly put it aside because he was so focused on banning sugary drinks. Look where that got him. And, you know, de Blasio said, let me just make the dominoes keep falling, and, you know, what has the man really done? I mean, he claimed that, oh, I'm going to reduce traffic deaths. Yeah, you haven't reduced traffic deaths. You thought lowering the speed limit to 25 would be one thing. What else did he do? Oh, yeah, universal pre-K. Yeah, there's some flaws to the program, according to my friend's sister, who actually was part of the inaugural run of de Blasio's pre-K program. So there's that. I will say, before the pandemic, sanitation was decent under de Blasio's watch. I mean, before Kat Garcia put her hands where they weren't supposed to be, I mean, I will say Ed Grayson did do a good job. You know, I actually do appreciate Ed Grayson, and I hope that Eric Adams is going to keep Ed Grayson as his sanitation commissioner, because we need Ed Grayson right now. And that's where I go into Eric Adams. So, our second African-American mayor is here in New York City. The first being, of course, David Dinkins. Now, you could say David Dinkins didn't address crime. But David Dinkins did do some positive when he was mayor. And when the riots were going on in Crown Heights, he actually was there for the community. When there was division. And, you know, Eric Adams needs to follow that model. When there's a problem going on in a major community, he needs to address the issues. I feel that in the first 100 days, Mayor Adams needs to go to Astoria and talk to the community about the crime going on over there, because the media has just completely ignored the crime issues going on in the 114th Precinct, where the NYPD is based out there. Remember, Astoria was always a nice area. Alright? It was always a place you wanted to live, because you wanted to be right on top of the city, cheaper rent, and you wouldn't have to deal with the Manhattan rent. You could still go to Manhattan. The subway ride's right there. Problem is, the criminals have taken over Astoria, and, you know, de Blasio and his rotch just let it get out of hand, and he just put it off. So that's what Mayor Adams needs to do. Priority number one is overall just address the crime. First of all, I'm glad he said, you know, he's going to appoint judges. I mean, I hope he appoints the right ones. That's the bottom line. And, you know, he has to denounce bail reform. Alright? Because if he denounces bail reform, that will give him a lot of respect, I feel. Because he said that he wanted the plainclothes units back that Bloomberg had when he was mayor. So, you know, I'm hoping that Mike Bloomberg does have some influence, because right now we're going to have 3 former living mayors still alive. Rudy Giuliani, Mike Bloomberg, and then de Blasio. But obviously, you know, de Blasio is just going to retire. All right? He's done in politics. I mean, even if he runs for governor, you know, it's done. Right? He already has a bad reputation. So this is it for Eric Adams. I mean, if he wants to have a good legacy, he has to address the crime. He has to make sure that he gets COVID under control. That's another thing he has to focus on. Because you have to get this virus in check in order to properly rebuild what we've lost during COVID. And I feel that Eric Adams needs to focus on hiring more workers for city services. A lot of them either passed from COVID, a lot of them just quit, didn't want to deal with it anymore. So there needs to be a way to get more people back in the workforce. That's the essential thing he needs to focus on as well. Because we've lost, again, a large part of the workforce. And he has to also address, how is he going to get people back into office buildings? Because you have so many vacant office spaces in the city that, you know, are not available. They're just not. And then the other thing that Eric Adams has to focus on is congestion pricing. I mean, we've been putting it off for so long that, you know, it's become a nightmare. But I'm glad de Blasio, in one of his last briefings, said there has to be a way to make the taxis exempt. I mean, I don't know if you can make Uber and Lyft exempt, but the taxis should be exempt. And I'm only saying that, and I'm only agreeing with de Blasio because my dad used to be a taxi driver 50 years ago, and it's just something that has to be addressed. Congestion pricing needs to be done in a very smart way. And we can't have a hiccup with it. I mean, the whole point is to help mass transit. And I don't know how that's going to help because we've got federal funding from Trump and Biden, but the issue is the whole point is to alleviate the traffic nightmare in the city. And if we don't alleviate that problem, then, you know, how is it ever going to get solved? So, now that moves on to the governor, Kathy Hochul, who in the past couple of days I have called on her to hold a public briefing on gun violence because her predecessor, Andrew Cuomo, before he resigned, and I don't know why the pervert's not going to jail at the moment, but that's a whole nother topic for another video. But this governor has been around since August, and she has yet to acknowledge the crime situation overall. She has yet to acknowledge that gun violence is also a pandemic. I'm sorry to say it the way it is, but it's widespread all over this state. I mean, it's such a nightmare with what's been going on. And especially how, for crying out loud, there was a shooting on Christmas in Hewlett. In the Five Towns. I mean, if something tells you that we have a problem with guns, then what is this governor doing? She has obsessive compulsive disorder over COVID. I mean, it should be on her public schedule that she, you know, discusses the problems with gun violence. Because I feel that she has yet to address it. And keep in mind, Monday's going to be very important. Because we're getting our new congressional maps. Because we lost a seat thanks to the people who left this state, passed away from COVID, or the fact that they just didn't want to fill out the census as a whole. That's why I always say, you gotta fill out the census. Because if you don't fill it out, then we're not going to properly be counted for federal funding for the next 10 years, which it's, what, 8 more years left of this decade? I mean, we're going to be in very big trouble. And now we're going to have a lot of uncertainty. A lot of people are going to have new people in Congress beginning next week. There's going to be uncertainty if Grace Meng is still going to be my congresswoman. I don't know if Nellie Rosick's going to be my state assemblywoman. I don't know if John Liu's going to be my state senator. So, I'm very worried right now. Because then, I don't know what the situation holds for Congress. I don't know if I'm going to be redistricted in Tom Suozzi's seat, where, remember, Suozzi's not running. He's busy running for governor. State Assembly, I'm concerned about that because there is a Republican challenger looking to take on Nellie Rosick. The state Senate, it's like, where am I going to be redistricted? Am I going to be represented by Toby Ann Stravinsky, or am I going to be represented by John Liu? So that needs to be focused on as well. And a lot of people need to be educated because the primary's coming up in June. And obviously, you know, I'm supporting Andrew Giuliani for governor. I know that's what I'm doing right now. as far as everything else is concerned for next year. And I know that he should be our governor, because I would feel that the bail reform would get repealed immediately. It would be a priority to help curb the gun violence, where the criminals are back in jail where they belong. And who knows, maybe we can reopen Rikers Island, and maybe Rikers Island can be run by the state of New York and not the city. It can be a state penitentiary. That would be a good idea. But until then, we're stuck with Eric Adams going through with the borough-based jails, which obviously that's something that we don't want, and another tarnished legacy of Bill de Blasio right there. So I'm hoping for a bright 2022. I really hope that Long Island can flip in the governor's race. We need Nassau and Suffolk to flip. I think it's possible we can get Nassau to flip, because remember, Nassau did vote for Bruce Blakeman in their county executive race, and I looked at the map of those results, and Blakeman, believe it or not, actually got a lot of Great Neck. Not all of Great Neck, but a decent chunk of Great Neck. And then Blakeman overwhelmingly won on the South Shore. No surprise there. And then, you know, the rest is history. But I'm curious what is going to end up happening in Nassau. We'll have to wait and see. I would hope that Bruce Blakeman's going to avoid the contract with Transdev. I mean, he has plenty of chances to do it, but if he's just going to sit there in Mineola and do nothing about it, then, you know, I'm going to be upset, and millions of people in Nassau County are going to be upset, because it's still going to be run by a private operator, and, you know, all we know is that MTA needs to take it over immediately. That's all I'm going to say on that. But I do feel that Nassau is going to be in decent hands with Blakeman overall. I would certainly hope that the taxes start to go down in Nassau, because Curran did do something controversial where she reassessed the taxes, and some people saw that taxes going up under her, and obviously that led a lot of people to be annoyed at her. And, you know, the only thing was, and a lot of people may not realize this in the long run, if your taxes get cut and all of a sudden Nassau goes into junk bond status again like it did under Mangano, then, you know, you really need to blame yourself for not re-electing Laura Curran. So that's the account you need to factor in. And I wish Shan Donnelly the best as district attorney. And I do expect that Suffolk County will elect a Republican county executive. I will be very shocked if they don't. And I do expect the House of Representatives will be taken over by Republicans next year. I will be very shocked if Kevin McCarthy is not Speaker of the House by this time next year. The Senate, I don't know what to say about that right now. There's going to be a lot of races next year. there could be a red wave coming because of Joe Biden's reckless inflation policies. Also, the fact that he left Americans behind in Afghanistan. Also, the fact that, you know, bottom line is, he is still planning on a huge inflation bill that is going to hurt our economy overall. And I want to thank Senator Joe Manchin for having common sense and making sure that, you know, inflation back better, as I like to call it, didn't go through. But I will say, Biden did do some good in terms of the stimulus that we needed earlier in 2021. And then, obviously, from the infrastructure bill that we needed, that was a given. So, I think next year and the next couple of years, I just don't see President Biden getting any major legislation done. I just don't logically see it happening. I think because of Biden, there's going to be a stalemate in Washington, and I just think that until a Republican comes back, and hopefully it's not Donald Trump, I'm hoping it's Mike Pence, please, because we need an old school conservative back in the White House, and not an egomaniac like Donald Trump. That, you know, I just don't think anything's going to get done for the next 3 years. I'm just being honest. We're going to have a very inactive Congress and a very inactive president for the next couple of years. Even if the Republicans take back the House, again, nothing's going to get done until the American people wake up and realize that maybe we made a mistake electing Joe Biden, and now we're paying more from our wallets because we're now paying more for gas and food and all the other stuff. So that's all I'm going to say for now. I'm hoping for a bright 2022, but we'll just have to, again, get through one more bad COVID wave and see how it goes. So that's it. Happy New Year. Thank you for watching.